Hey, I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of the AWM NFL podcast. My name is Riccardo Stewart, and I'm your host, and I'm joined with my friends, Jeff Locke, we called him the professor, Zach Miller, we call the truth, and then Sam Acho, who we call the mayor. We have been in this series where we're looking at what does an elite athlete do to create, sustain multi-generational wealth. And we use phrases like, what is he like? He's an athlete CEO. Well, what does that look like? One, you got to create it. You got to create value. And then when you've created value, then you got to capture that value. And that's getting the second contract, being able to get the multi-million-dollar contract. Once you have that contract, now you got to be able to convert it. Meaning, what does it look like for you to take and make the most after-tax dollars and put it in your pocket? And from there, what does it look like to continue? We've all had coaches before. And we've all had coaches who talk about, it's not about the first play, it's about the last play. It's not about the first play, it's about the last play, over and over again. And the whole ideal is like, dude, finish, right? Finish. What we're talking about is not just you finishing, because you may actually do really well on the field and off the field and have a lot of money and live the life that you wanted. But do your kids and do your kids' kids. What does it look like for you to establish a word that is often used but never really fully realized? Legacy. And then what does it look like for you when you've created it, when you've captured it, when you've converted it, that it continues, that your last name is a staple because your great grandkids are experiencing what you begin to set up for them. And so that's what we want to be able to talk about on this particular episode of what that looks like. Sam, I'm going to start with you first. I know you're in a hotel out there in Florida, but what are the stats in terms of people who make 30 million or more? How many of them actually are able to achieve what we understand as multi-generational wealth?
Yeah, in football, we always go over tape. You study film, you see, okay, these things are like an 80% or a 10% or a 20%. Well, when it comes to that generational wealth conversation, with families who have $30 million or more to invest or spend, only 30% of families actually pass down wealth to their kids. Out of that number, right? So 30 million or more, only 10% of families pass down wealth to their grandkids. And so everyone talks about this idea of, yeah, I made all this money, I'm going to build multi-generational wealth. Well, 90% of the time, expect failure if you don't have the right kind of plan.
I mean, those stats are staggering. And we all see it. Even as kids, we watch someone make a contract and we go, man, they're going to be set up for life. And maybe in their life, they are. But the lives that they've created, and after that, they're not. Zach, why is that the case? Why is it like that?
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Like you said, coach talk, seriously, there's just a lot of things you have to do to manage the passing of wealth to your kids. I mean, I think about with my own kids, I have 4 kids, and the amount of like taxes you could end up paying. And let's just look at, I'm going to end up having to pay estate tax. Brock's going to have to pay a ton of estate taxes just if he passes on. And just because I didn't understand what the estate tax even is. I used to see an estate sale. I was like, oh, I don't even know. Was it like a garage sale or something? And so when I was doing my estate planning, I finally figured out what it was. And all the government does is when you die, they add up all of everything you own. And then if whatever that number is, whatever it is, if it's over a certain amount, they just take 40% of it. And that's just flat how it works. You get that exemption amount, but anything over it. So if Brock dies with $1 billion, the government is going to request $400 million from him within 9 months. And this happens every year in the US. Everyone who has over a certain amount of money has to pay it. The thing why athletes like usually don't know about it is because it's such a high exemption over 15, it's about 15 million where you don't have to pay anything. But guess what? When you are signing these type of contracts, now that becomes a reality. So you have to account for it. You have to do the estate tax planning. You have to do complicated structures to try to mitigate some of that. And so cutting that in half allows more money to be passed on to the next generation. It's just smart planning. And then I mean, over generations, you have to bring the kids, the grandkids into the conversations, into the planning, into those type of discussions. Because if you don't prepare them, they will never be ready to inherit that kind of wealth. And everyone worries about spoiled kids, but that's the reality of what can happen if you don't start early with your kids to be able to prep them for that. And then the grandkids, and then prep your kids to prep the great grandkids. And it's just all the way down the line, because it's a lot of times the relationships, and a fancy word for passing down your values, family governments. And so, Rick, I know you're going to talk about that, but things like work ethic, how you made that first generation money in the first place matters immensely to how much those kids are going to care about that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you use the word spoiled. And if you think about food or even a drink, like think about milk that goes bad or spoils, it's usually you didn't take care of it, right? Or you left it in the wrong place, or it expired. Family governance is the ideal of going, you've made something, and now you have to prepare your kids for what they're going to receive and how that looks like. And not just how you made it, but how to continue it. And most of us, we don't understand that, because even on this thread, like if we're honest, most of us are in a position that is better than what our parents were. So our parents did what they wanted to do, and that is, I want you to be in a position better than me. Well, what happens when you are in that position? How do you continue it? And that's why the family governance, the family leadership is, how do I plan and build a family that understands how to begin to continue and grow the family business? Because that's essentially what you're in. And it takes a particular skill set and a team of a family office that has men and women in place to be able to help those things. Jeff, when it comes to supporting multiple generations, like give me some examples of what that looks like.
Yeah, so Zach mentioned Brock a couple times. We're talking about Brock Purdy, right? Last couple podcast, we really talked about what could possibly happen with him and the money he's going to earn in this contract he just signed, right? So we've been fortunate to work with a lot of clients like Brock, right, who have money, enough money for themselves and for multiple generations of their family. And we've helped them set up these special trusts and vehicles Zach talked about to try and avoid how much goes to the government when they pass away. Some of the things we've seen, which are pretty cool. Number one's, I want to pay for college for every one of my kids, every one of their kids, every one of those kids. And you can do that with special structures. Never have to worry about paying for school again for multiple generations of your family. A huge thing you can pass on. And that's the legacy, right? Yeah, Uncle Brock, never met him, but all of us have gone to school forever without having to have it paid. Other things like buying a first house. You're the down payment funds for every single kid's first house and all their kids' houses, right? A huge leg up in life, maybe without, like Riccardo said, spoiling, right? Not giving them the mega mansion, but down payment funds. Same with starting a business. You could be the seed money for everyone's first business, as they get older, right? Help them go out and be their own entrepreneur, really try to work for themselves, try to create something of value, and you help them get off the ground to do it. We talked about in the last episode, right? Sam knows all there is about giving and sharing. You can have a private foundation set up where every generation of your family keeps running the private foundation, keeps making that money last to help charities, communities you care about. And you can make special rules, right? This family member gets money unlocked at 30. This family member gets money unlocked at 40. Right? These are all things you can think about when passing down wealth in a smart way that avoids Mr. Government taking 40% every single time it passes.
There's things that I have that I own now that I'm going, I never knew existed, or I never knew I needed. And it's beyond just luxury. It's just the reality of going, gosh, I need that now. Whether it's, certain sorts of furniture you have, or, dishes that you have that you just need. When you get to a certain level of wealth, you've never thought of it, but you need a family office. And it's not just something where you're acting bougie. It's just going, most people have never thought about it. They've never heard of it because they're not at the wealth that you're at. When you've created that value and captured it with the contract, and then you've converted it, now you have after-tax dollars in your pocket, million dollars. It's hard just to go to an FA who's really thinking about just investments. Let's just be honest. Who may just hire out another CPA for you to think about just being tax compliant. Who's not thinking about insurance, who's not thinking about estate planning, who's not thinking about how does this wealth not only get to your kids, how do they instruct, equip, and train your kids so that they will train their kids and so forth. Like that's a team of experts that are thinking about your wealth. We're talking about Vanderbilts. We're talking about names that you're a part of now. And so you just can't go to the run of the mill kind of person. And so if you were thinking about, okay, I've heard about this family office. I've heard about it. I don't know what it is. Listen, we would love to talk to you about it. In fact, these last 4 episodes were about what does it look like to have an athlete family office. Please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to give you some resources. Our number is 602-989-5022.
This has been a production of AWM Capital, the Athlete Family Office. Reach out to the team at athletefamilyoffice.com or by calling or texting 602-989-5022. All opinions expressed by the hosts are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of AWM Capital. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon in any manner as professional advice or an endorsement of any practices, products, or services. There can be no guarantees or assurances that the views expressed here will be applicable to any particular facts or circumstances and should not be relied upon in any manner. You should consult your own advisors as to legal, business, tax, and other related matters concerning any investment. Clients and employees of AWM Capital may maintain positions in the securities or companies discussed in this podcast.